Hi, good afternoon. Today we are going live with Marie Thouin, PhD and founder of Love Insight Dating. So, Marie works with individuals to support you on your conscious and mindful dating journey. So, let me bring on Marie now. And today we'll be talking about dating from a place of yes or from a place of no, and what that looks like, what that feels like in the body, and how you can use dating from a place of yes to actually support you as you go about connecting. So let's see where Marie is. There we go. Thanks for bearing with us. Technical challenges here. Let's go, Instagram. Hey.
Hi.
Hello. Good afternoon. Good morning. Good to have you on again. It's always good to see your face.
You
I
too.
gave a little mini bio, but would love if you can share first just more about your work, what you're up to, and then we'll go into the yes and no's of dating.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So my name is Marie. I am the founder of Love Insight Dating, which is a dating coaching practice. I work with people who have all kinds of different backgrounds, but are really interested in bringing more growth and more mindfulness in their dating and relationship journey. So I love working with people one-on-one and meet them where they're at. And I love working with you at Hum Hum.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really a gift to get to collaborate with you, and I have been enjoying our journey. It's been almost, what, I don't know, almost a year now, I feel like.
I think so. Yeah.
Maybe. So here we are. And today, Marie and I were kind of chit-chatting, I think after an event recently, and Marie had talked about, you had shared a bit about, seeing people either dating from a place of yes or dating from their no. So almost an avoidant, I don't want this and I don't want this. So I would love to just hear how you define both of those things, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, that is such a profound topic. And it did dawn on me, how that difference was so pronounced in people, after one of the events where I was doing mini coaching sessions, and I found myself with several people just kind of naturally saying, like, okay, like, I know that you are very focused on what you don't want, but what is it that you do want? Like, how about we come from your yes? So, to describe the difference between the two, if you're coming from your no, you are, in fact, focused on the things that you are trying to avoid.
Yes.
You're saying, okay, I had these bad experiences in my past, and now I want to say no to them. Which
Yep.
is a completely natural reaction, but it can end up feeling like you're in a space of negativity
Yeah. Yep.
around. You're like, okay, like no assholes, no this, no that, and you can see sometimes people write it on their dating profile, and it just communicates like, hey, I've been burned. I'm gonna put you through the ringer, and I'm not gonna, be very open, basically.
Yeah, it's very defended. And I think, of course, yeah, if you've been hurt and you are clear on your boundaries, I think that's one thing. It's like you can have your boundaries, you can be clear on those
Mhm.
and have a sense of what it is you don't want to repeat for yourself. But more so, like, I think it's more helpful to like have it about for your own patterning. Like, I don't want to go into a place of, let's just call it negativity. That's a healthy no. It's like I'm gonna like not focus on negativity, but yeah, like you're saying, if your energy is going towards the no, then it's not creating the yes reality, the desired experience you want in dating. So tell us about the yes.
Right, right. The yes is more about creating standards and clear desires. And,
Mm, I love that.
like boundaries are wonderful, but if we can turn them into the positive, they become standards.
Mm, mm-hmm.
So, yes, I want to date someone who is extremely kind. I want to date someone who is going to treat me right.
Mm-hmm.
I want to date someone who's ready to invest in this relationship, etc., etc. There is a positivity, there's like a, yes, this is what I want. And naturally, everything else that's not the standard might just kind of fall away. But
Yeah.
it's not, you're not in a defended space doing that.
Yeah, and I think it also it helps you not slip into judgment because you're like, no, that's just not the desired experience I'm going for. And like, if you have a sense of how you want to feel and what it would feel like to date somebody, you can automatically recognize, oh, that's not how this would feel. That's a no, and that's okay. And you keep moving. But it's like, yeah, I think it's a very different, shift is a different, experience to date from that place.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking about an analogy. Like, if you're looking for a job, for example, and you're saying, like, hey, I need to make X amount of money just to cover my bills and to feel happy and to feel rewarded, and I need, like, these conditions, like these kinds of benefits, like, these are the things that I need to be happy in my job, then you're going to look for positions that offer that. And naturally, everything else is going to fall away.
Mm,
Um, so you're not going to necessarily look at jobs that don't offer you that.
yep. And I think too, like your energy goes to a creative place and a receptive place as opposed to a defended and contracted one. You're constantly like, yeah, dating from the no or even just living from the no. I mean, I think this can be applied to all of living.
Right.
So yeah, yeah, I love that. So talk a little bit about, maybe ways we can recognize in our own experience when that, what does it look like to kind of date from this no, and then what does it look and feel like in the body and in our experience when we are really living from that place of like desire and yes.
That is such a good question. Yeah, well, the yes will feel a lot more relaxing and a lot more exuberant and a lot more expanded. And the no will feel like a contraction. It would feel like a little bit of a fight or flight activation, like when you're feeling like there's a threat, then you're anxious, you are defended, you're contracted. Um, so you can really just look at, okay, like how tense am I in my body? And that's a very good indicator.
Mm. Yeah, and also too, like knowing that that is internally generated experience, so we can also shift that. Like even if we're dating or living from a place of no or resistance, and I wanted this, we're defended. Like how might we bring some of that softness and receptivity to shift into the yes to then because it's really isn't about the other person. It's like it's not about are they a no or a yes. It's like are we what's that energetic quality. So let's maybe can you help give an example of like let's say you're dating someone, right? And maybe it's like your second date, let's say,
Mhm.
and you've kind of been operating from this like defended contracted place, even if it's very subtle, right? How like what does that look like? And then like when how do we make that shift into the more like desire based, yes based approach?
Right, that's a good question as well. So oftentimes we have those lists in our minds of the checklist.
The
These are that
checklist.
the person has to fill for them to fit into our idea of a perfect partner.
Yeah.
And when we are in front of someone who doesn't check all of those boxes, we just look at them very negatively. We might look at them as like, oh, they're failing to meet my expectations. And that is very contracting. And of course, we're going to do that. Like there's no way to just like completely like not have that in mind, but we can look at the person more in terms of like, oh, who are they and what can I learn from them? Like,
Mm.
not come from that expectation, like this person has to be my one and only, or they're just like someone that I must discard. But can I just say yes to the person in front of me in that moment? Can
Mm.
I say yes to myself and whatever I feel like I have to learn? Or if, really I just feel like, okay, like this is enough. I don't need to spend, another date or even another hour with that person. Can I just say, like, okay, I feel complete and
Mm.
exit the situation, but without feeling like, oh, this has to be a tense kind of situation where my expectation didn't get met.
Right, almost like creating the narrative or the why to point to something to kind of justify the like sense of maybe completion and a connection where it's like, okay, this feels complete. I don't have more energy that wants to go in this direction. And like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, instead of spinning up all the reasons why this person X, Y, and Z, it's like it's not that important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and saying yes to myself, like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
following my intuition, and I'm saying yes to myself by saying like, oh, I had a really great time, and I feel like we're not really a match, or like I just feel like I am complete in this moment. So, you know, it's okay to just end a conversation on a positive note from a place of like, yes to who I am, yes to my intuition, without inserting negativity into it.
Yeah, yep. I think that that's huge. And when in doubt, like you can create more space. You can create more space to see. I think a lot of us can get stuck in the like, middle territory of trying to decide, do I want to see this person or not? And I think if there's still doubt, maybe that doubt can then be turned into curiosity and like you can start to get curious about, what is here? What is keeping me from making a choice or keeping me from knowing and feeling clear on do I want more energy or not? And so if you turn that doubt into curiosity, that is not negative, right? There's no problem
Mhm.
that doubt is there. So
Right, right, exactly, exactly.
healthy sometimes. And I think that the challenge is that it's an uncomfortable experience. And so that's how the negativity can slip in is we don't like that experience of not knowing, feeling uncertain, feeling doubtful, questioning, resisting, etc. So we need to now cast some kind of narrative in order to like put it in its place.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's so sad because then sometimes we end up spreading kind of a negative vibration to the people that we're in front of because we feel uncomfortable with that space
Mhm.
of doubt or that ambiguity. And then, instead of saying, like, hey, like, let's figure this out together, like, you're a complex human being and so am I, and just to kind of trust that things will be okay.
Yeah. And also, like, it's a beautiful opportunity to have self-compassion to just say, like, oh, I'm suffering because I don't have this clarity and like this feels really uncomfortable. Like, how can I bring myself, how can I bring more tenderness to myself in this moment? And
Mhm.
sometimes that in and of itself can just kind of shift the energy. But, going back to um, the word desire, because I love that you brought that in and it has a creative element to it. It kind of spark creativity. So maybe let's just talk a little bit about like the function of desire in terms of creating the reality that you want to live in. Let's tell us about that, Marie.
Yay, I'm so glad you brought the word creativity into this because, yeah, it is so connected to dating from that place of yes. It
Hmm.
is about like looking at dating as a creative act and saying, like, okay, like, what do I want to attract? What do I want to magnetize? And what, not just in isolation, but with the things that are coming my way. Because it's a co creation, it's not an isolated kind of creation. But when we are presented with things, like it's an opportunity to create our own reality and our own narrative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how in improv they're like working with the yes and that is
Mhm.
so co-creative. It's like, okay, that and then this too. And there's this building. And I think too, the more we are clear on our yes and our desire, the more we bring that forth and use that as a conversation or dialogue energetically, verbally, or with action with another person. So
Mm.
yeah, do you have examples either with clients or in your own world where you were leading with that yes and then you were met with someone else's yes and like what that looks like?
Yeah, I have a client who is in her 60s and she hasn't dated in over 12 years and she's just getting back to the dating space. And, she was not sure that she wanted to dive into a serious relationship right away, but she wanted to have kind of an entry into just intimacy again. And she went to a speed dating event, and she said it really helped her kind of refine her awareness of her desires and what she wants to say yes to and maybe and partially. But, she said she focused on just kind of her desire and curiosity rather than focusing on what's wrong with people. And she had 3 or 4 dates from that event.
Wow. And that's so beautiful. It's so creative. It's to get to exchange energy from that place of let me see, instead of I don't want this and I don't want this, right? We all do it in some way. It's like, it's whether it's showing up in dating or not, but I love that.
Yeah, it's beautiful to witness. I mean, and it's a work in progress. It's like, okay, like she goes now on those dates and maybe none of them is going to be like a long-term or like a final kind of monogamous relationship, but each one of those people can open a door for her and help her reclaim a part of herself that she might not have explored or she might have forgotten along the way. So I like that question too when we go on a date and it's not, our checklist, but can this experience open a door for us? What is it showing me about me? And
Yes.
that's really
What?
saying yes to the experience.
Yeah, I think there is always some doors, even if we're posing the question, like, what door is this opening for me? Whether it's a glimpse into some facet of self or, into some other connection or relationship. I think it's so true. And whether you're applying this to dating or let's even say for work, like networking, right? It's like another one of those things that nobody really likes doing. But I think they don't like it because it's missing that element of like curiosity and synchronicity. But if you are coming at it from a place of like, here's what I want to create, like, who else is going to create with me, and like meeting people from that lens, then it could feel so satisfying and beautiful and just very generous. And I think that generosity is like one of those attributes that comes naturally um, with curiosity, with that creative energy.
I agree. Like one of the first things that I usually ask my clients to do when we work together is write a list of the things that you want to give and offer
I love.
in your next relationship or relationships. And that kind of already brings a state of mind of focusing on generosity and sharing. And it's like, okay, I'm not just going on dates to try to get something from somebody. I'm actually going to share more of myself, which
Yeah.
is really like so satisfying. Like we want to be seen, we want to be received,
Mm.
and that's a way that we get to experience ourselves more fully.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point that in our modern culture, we almost reserve certain levels of generosity just for like an intimate partner. But
Mhm.
in fact, if you could show up with that level of like, what can I, because it gives us that permission to give from such a, because it's so vulnerable in some way. Like you're offering your life, you're offering your intention, you're offering your heart. And that it feels great. Like it feels so good to like go out of your way to do something for somebody, to give them something, to like focus on making them, smile. And it's like if everyone were our lover in some regard, obviously that's a lot of energy, but like it doesn't have to just be reserved for, a single person. Like it that level of how do you romance and like love your friends? How do you romance and love
Mhm.
stranger, as simple as, oh, the people who will buy coffee for the person behind them, or just those small acts of kindness and love are just like, they feel so good in our own body that they become um, like you want to do it more the more you do it.
That is so true. That is so true. I mean, that's really the best way to live, period.
Yeah.
But then, guess what? Like someone who lives in that space, everyone wants to date them.
Right, right. And I think that's the thing is like once we stop focusing on like if you focus on it, right, then you slip into this like, oh, manipulative territory. But if it's an authentic arising of generosity and curiosity and kindness, then it's not, but it's the natural byproduct. It just is like you become magnetic you because you are heart centered and like living in that way. So it is a fine line of like, oh, why am I doing this? Can I really focus on having this be authentic? And then yeah, the rest is just a natural unfolding.
Yes. And I will say it takes a lot of courage to do that when you have been burned or you've had bad experiences. Like, so it's not easy. I know it's easier said than done, Marie.
You know, that's such a good point too. I think one of the most vulnerable places are when we give authentically and that gift isn't received or doesn't feel accepted or is questioned or whatever, right? We're like, I did this thing and it's like, what? That hurts. So
Yeah.
it does take a lot of courage to live from that place. I think it's a good point.
Right. Whoop. But then the alternative is to not live from that place and, to just shut the door to pretty much everyone, or to have such a tiny, tiny little opening that almost nobody is going to be willing to like fight those dragons for you. So I
Mm,
see that a lot also in clients who come to me after years of being lonely and trying to date, but doing it from that no place
mm,
and not really letting anyone in. And it takes a lot of dedication to shift that energy around and to say, like, okay, I am going to date from a place of yes. I am going to push myself to be generous to everyone that I meet and shift that energy around, like going from being this kind of deprived person who's just really waiting for someone to like climb over the hills and fight the crocodiles and prove themselves, and that might not happen for a very long time. But if you do like open the door and build your resilience so that you can afford to have that door open and sometimes, withstanding disappointment, and you can build resilience by strengthening your own social network and strengthening your own nervous system, your own body, and your own relationship with yourself, then you can live in that place and have the resilience you need to have that kind of generosity. And then,
mm,
you know, and then it becomes like a snowball effect.
mm.
People start coming into your life, you start having more success with dating. So it can be hard to reverse the dynamic, but once you do, it gets better and better.
I love that you brought up the attribute of resilience because I think we've gotten into this like maybe pattern societally in our collective that we can somehow shortcut and avoid the hurt that naturally can come with being vulnerable, and being vulnerable is required to connect, and that connection is what a lot of us are seeking in like the dating experience. So this concept of resilience, being able to say like, I know what I'm getting myself into, I have to open my heart, it feels good to be generous because when it's open, right, that feels amazing. Like that's the feeling of ourselves that we want to experience, that someone else is almost just like mirroring back to us. But and with that, we are more vulnerable. We have more ups and downs. We feel the pain of just being human. And so it's almost like there is no shortcut to bypass the emotional ebbs and flows of the dating process.
Mm-hmm.
But the more resilience we have to take care of ourselves, to bounce back, to intend to keep our hearts open amid all of that, like then we're going to have a better experience. We're going to have a very different dating experience so that we're not hardening with every challenge and up and down, but we're actually softening and we're opening. And I love that, you're bringing this up. So in terms of like, there are a few ways I want to ask you one more thing about, don't let me forget to ask about demands and standards. Okay. I'm just dropping the pin, but in terms of resilience, what can we do to cultivate more internal resilience, and like how can we pay attention to notice, oh, here's an opportunity for me to build more courage, bring, continue to flex that muscle.
Hmm. Well, doing small acts of kindness, I think, is a good way to start. Like buying the coffee for the person behind you, or, buying flowers for your coworker, and just kind of having those smaller actions be a great foundation. It can already start to loosen up, like something in you and show you your strength, show you that you can have a great impact in the world with those small actions.
Mm.
And then doing them for yourself, buying yourself flowers, treating your body really, really well, like getting the good food, getting the good exercise, getting the good bubble bath, like whatever it is that you need to feel really taken care of and pampered by yourself, so that you're sending the message to yourself, like, I'm worth it. I'm valuable. I'm strong. I have a full plate.
I don't
So,
wait to be in partnership also to care for myself, to tend to these, to tend to my desires, to to nourish, because it's just, we're creating more of that which we are and have within a relationship. So like, how do I bring that up in self already? That's a good point.
mhm.
um, Go ahead.
And then, very, very important is to have a great network of people that you love and love you. And whether it's friends, families, like having really good relationships in your life, because we are not built for isolation, we're built for connection, and our nervous system will co regulate with other people.
Mm.
So to have very good, secure relationships with, like at least a core group of people is gonna just really bring your resilience so much higher than if you didn't have that. Like, I don't recommend really that people try to date, and go online dating if they don't already have friends in their life, because
Mm.
it's really, really hard to face the amount of rejection and the challenge of, like finding a life partner if you don't have those other people to just be with and be comfortable with.
Mm. And I think too, friends are a beautiful mirror to really hold up with love, to say like, hey, like I'm noticing this in you, and having someone you trust to kind of help hold that mirror up.
Mm-hmm.
it- it's invaluable. So the thing I wanted to ask you about is, I've had a lot of people talk about like their desire list, but it's still defended. So like it's kind of like, I expect XYZ and da 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 da. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like the near miss of living in your desire and positivity, because it's like these are my expectations, but those expectations have kind of now slipped into like still kind of a defended. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a gray
Yeah.
where it's like that's actually negativity dressed as positivity. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you, like recognize when what, like, okay, you talked about standards. So
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about the difference between a standard and then like a demand.
Right, right. That is so different. And the words can be the same, like you said. You can say the exact same word, but with a totally different energy behind it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, like a standard would be like, I really want to date someone who treats me really well. And a demand is, I'm going to date someone who treats me really well.
They better treat me really well or I'm out of here. So like, okay. Yeah. Yes. And I think also like, what does that look like? Like, I think there's certain, let me give the example of like, I want to date someone who initiates, who like makes the first move. I feel like, or like makes me feel like they're willing to take charge, right? It's like there's almost something beneath that that is the real thing you're wanting, but like the expression of it is the thing that people are latching on to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that's so interesting. Please say more about that. Like,
Yeah.
what do
So like
you
if
think
we're
the real expression underneath?
like, I want to feel like the person I'm dating takes initiative.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay, great. And like and I think it's like what I've also heard is because I've often found myself in partnerships where I'm always leading.
Mm. Hmm.
Maybe the desire here is I want to feel a balance in the creative energy that's being put into my relationship.
Hmm.
And so instead of latching on to exactly how it expresses or doesn't express, really like we can pay attention to, is this feeling imbalanced or not? Or am I just referencing a previous experience that's making me feel like it's imbalanced because I've now gone into contraction and like flight almost, right?
Hmm.
So if the first person doesn't, if the person you're engaging with doesn't make the first move, are they other ways maybe at like co-creating with you, and can that feel balanced, or maybe not, and that's just a stand-in for like a broader challenge you're finding the dynamic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Like oftentimes we'll substitute something very specific for a more broad kind of need.
Right, so it's almost like the desire and the creative energy is understanding like the root of our needs and like the experience we have with another person, and then releasing attachment to exactly how that looks like,
Mm.
because otherwise then we're just caught in our past.
Yeah, yeah, that is so true. Actually, I have an example too.
Go
I
ahead.
had a client who was very set on dating the kind of alpha male with a suit and tie, like finance kind of guy. Like she was like, I want this type of alpha male who has a very successful career, high status. And then, interestingly enough, she met someone who was a piano teacher and fell completely in love with him because she realized that what she wanted was just to feel cared for. It was not the suit and tie, it was not like the high status that she was looking for, but she was looking for someone who was willing to, like take care of her um, in a very full way, like not like baby her, but just someone who is going to really care for her and have the availability and the bandwidth. And it didn't matter what was the profession, it just mattered that she felt this kind of support and that kind of engagement.
Yeah, and if we're tuned in, we can recognize, oh, this is what I want. But if we're too attached to the way that it's supposed to express, we might actually miss the thing that's right in front of us that's actually unfolding, which is what we had wanted. And I think that that's like a big piece of just that tuning into the core aspect of the feeling we want to have, and being able to recognize it. There's also just, yeah, like gratitude and like appreciation, I think then also can flood in our system and experience, and feels really good too.
Right, right. Can we express those desires from a place of gratitude? Like that, hey, I want to be treated well. And to express that with a sense of gratitude for the experience that is to come versus like, I want to be treated well, but that coming from fear of not being treated well or that kind of anger of having been mistreated before.
Well said. I love that. Yeah, yeah. That it's so subtle. It's like an energetic difference between doing something from, yeah, this expanded place to slightly contracted, and we really can notice it in our own bodies. And I think like that capacity to just pause, and instead of reacting, or instead of, acting from that place, like just pausing and noticing what's happening in my system right now. Am I coming from a place of feeling open and expanded and heart centered? Am I coming from a place of feeling defended and feeling guarded and trying to avoid something I don't want to happen? And there's sirens. So, yeah. Anything else you want to say? We've actually gone longer than we thought we would, but not
I
surprised.
know, we always do that.
Yeah. Anything else you feel called to share? Stories, anecdotes, anything?
Well, gosh, I had something on the tip of my tongue and I forgot about it. So maybe we can keep it for next time.
Okay. The energy or defendedness. I'm just throwing things out.
What were we saying right before the siren? that kind of difference in the energy. Oh yeah, yeah. I was gonna say we need to also look at when we do feel like we're coming from negativity and we have this past experience that we don't want to repeat. Maybe there's more emotional pain to be released there before we can
Mm,
really come from a place of positivity. So, you
mm.
know, of course, mindset is important, but sometimes there's stuff that we just maybe haven't dealt with and we haven't found forgiveness and we haven't really let go of. And that's why working with a coach or a therapist or, some kind of container to release emotional pain is so important in dating and relationship, because there's things we might not be able to just mindset our way over.
Yes, I think that's a great point. And yeah, exactly. Journaling, go just, I think even just being able to go inward, and then if that's not doing it, absolutely being able to have a sounding board of somebody who's experienced and that you trust, like, it's so helpful. So, yeah, thank you so much, Marie. This was such a joy as usual. And are you're coaching at some events this month, right? I believe.
Yeah, I'm coaching at the women's event, which is this week, this Thursday.
Yes, I think it is. Yeah,
Yeah, yes.
beautiful.
Excited for that.
So we'll have you, and I'm gonna tag Marie's handle in our notes for the IGTV and reach out to Marie. She's amazing. We send lots of people to Marie, so it's a joy to work with you. And thank you. Thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you, Alexandra. It's always a pleasure.
Okay, bye.
Bye.